Sevier County, Tennessee. A 911 call comes in. A young mother says her 3-year-old son has collapsed. Joshua Jarnigan Jr. is rushed to the hospital. Doctors find bruises everywhere: his head, his sides, his arms, his legs, and injuries to his most private areas. Injuries no fall could explain. As Joshua fights for his life, investigators dig deeper. They find 4 other children living in the home: 2 10-year-old boys, a 12-year-old boy, and a 2-year-old girl. And they hear from witnesses, 2 of Joshua's own brothers, who say they saw what happened. Prosecutors tell the jury the truth they uncovered. This wasn't an accident, it was part of a pattern, abuse over time. And on New Year's Day 2022, the blow that ended Joshua's life. Jury returns its verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. On August 7th, 2025, Brenda Dawn Behunin is sentenced to life in prison without parole. Her surviving children have since been adopted, and home on Sims Road will never be the same. Shreveport, Louisiana. A summer night in 2022. 2 men, strangers, thrown into the same jail cell. One is 72-year-old Bobby Young, arrested hours earlier on drug charges. The other, 37-year-old Andrew Drew Attaway, booked for misdemeanor simple assault. Attaway was calm during booking until jailers tried to place him in a group cell. Then, his demeanor shifted. Minutes later, inside that cell, Attaway exploded, raining blows on Young's head with a closed fist. More than a dozen strikes, no weapon, just raw, brutal force. Young collapsed. Paramedics rushed him to Ochsner LSU Health, where doctors tried to relieve the swelling in his brain. For 17 days, he clung to life. On June 20th, 2022, he was gone. The attack had been unprovoked, random, relentless. On July 22nd, 2025, a Caddo Parish jury needed less than an hour to find Attaway guilty of second-degree murder. 9 witnesses testified. The evidence was undeniable. On August 7th, 2025, Judge Donald Hathaway Jr. imposed the mandatory sentence: life. No probation, no parole, no release. A man who entered jail on a misdemeanor charge will never leave prison alive. August 8th, 2021, Vero Beach, Florida. A quiet driveway in a small neighborhood. A 25-year-old man is found lying in front of his home, a single gunshot wound to the back of his head. His name was Justin Bechtold, vice president of his family's well drilling business, on track to take over when his father retired. Friends said he was funny, hardworking, and would give you the shirt off his back. Detectives learned the shooting happened during a marijuana transaction. Bechtold had been buying from a 24-year-old named Dukarai Lee Thomas for about a year. At some point, Thomas reportedly felt ripped off, and investigators believe that resentment may have boiled over. What followed was an 8-month manhunt. Deputies traced Thomas's vehicle, hidden in the small community of Gifford, and his cell phone, placing him near the scene. But Thomas had already fled, traveling 300 miles north to Tallahassee. The trail didn't go cold. In fact, the sheriff later revealed that social media was one of the biggest factors in finally closing in on him. Every post, every online move, leaving breadcrumbs. In September 2021, Thomas was arrested on a communications charge tied to the drug deal, but bonded out on $250,000. Months later, investigators gathered enough to charge him with first-degree murder. When U.S. Marshals found him again in Tallahassee, it was over. On August 1st, 2025, a jury found Dukarai Lee Thomas guilty of murder, robbery, and unlawful use of a two-way communication device. That same day, the judge sentenced him to life in prison without parole. For Justin's parents, Tim and Michelle, it was a long-awaited moment of justice. They said Justin's smile was infectious. His hugs were tight, and his love for people and animals were unmatched. He should still be with us, the sheriff said. This was another senseless, tragic murder over marijuana. Shreveport, Louisiana. A summer night in 2022. 2 men, strangers, thrown into the same jail cell. One is 72-year-old Bobby Young, arrested hours earlier on drug charges. The other, 37-year-old Andrew Drew Attaway, booked for misdemeanor simple assault. Attaway was calm during booking until jailers tried to place him in a group cell. Then, his demeanor shifted. Minutes later, inside that cell, Attaway exploded, raining blows on Young's head with a closed fist. More than a dozen strikes, no weapon, just raw, brutal force. Young collapsed. Paramedics rushed him to Ochsner LSU Health, where doctors tried to relieve the swelling in his brain. For 17 days, he clung to life. On June 20th, 2022, he was gone. The attack had been unprovoked, random, relentless. On July 22nd, 2025, a Caddo Parish jury needed less than an hour to find Attaway guilty of second-degree murder. 9 witnesses testified. The evidence was undeniable. On August 7th, 2025, Judge Donald Hathaway Jr. imposed the mandatory sentence. Life. No probation, no parole, no release. A man who entered jail on a misdemeanor charge will never leave prison alive. Gates County, North Carolina, May 3rd, 2022. Home security cameras capture a scene no one should ever see, and one prosecutor say reveals the truth of what happened. Wilson Williams and Shade Roscoe lived together. She was pregnant. The footage shows Williams striking her, kicking her, as she falls to the ground. She does not fight back. She cannot. Then a single shot to the back of the head. Shade was gone. So was her unborn child. When her family came looking, they found her body. The man she loved was nowhere in sight. But Wilson called her mother. When she asked him what he had done, he didn't deny it. He only told her, "Take care of my son." By the next day, he had turned himself in. In court, the jury saw the footage, saw how the attack began and how it ended. They convicted Williams of second-degree murder for Shade's death and first-degree murder for the killing of her unborn child. The judge's sentence, life in prison without parole, plus at least 20 more years. Shade's family has started the Shade Foundation to raise awareness about domestic violence. A mother, an unborn child, 2 lives taken in the same heartbeat. Baton Rouge, Louisiana, July 12, 2019. Sadie Roberts Joseph was more than a beloved neighbor. She was an icon, founder of the city's first Black History Museum, organizer of annual Juneteenth festivals, a woman whose life was devoted to building community. But on that summer day, police found her body stuffed in the trunk of her own car, hidden behind an abandoned house. Her skin smelled of bleach, an attempt to erase the evidence. The coroner's report, death by violent asphyxiation. Investigators traced the trail back to a familiar face, Ron Jermaine Bell, a tenant in one of Sadie's rental homes. DNA on her body and inside her car. Surveillance placing him near the scene that night. His motive? Prosecutors said it was as small and as cold as $1,200 in overdue rent. Bell had a past, a registered sex offender with a conviction for the rape of an 8-year-old girl. But this crime was different. It was personal, up close, primitive. In June 2024, after years of delays, a jury found Bell guilty of second-degree murder. And now, sentence is final. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom was nearly empty as the judge spoke. "You killed Miss Roberts in the most primitive and personal way possible. Crime as senseless and brutal as that deserves the sentence the law demands." Her son Jason told the court, "Its streets are darker without her light. A cultural icon, gone. A city still mourning, and a killer, locked away forever." Erie, Pennsylvania. 2 men, once tied by violence, cross paths again. Jeffrey Johnson, 40 years old, shot Butler back in 2015. He served prison time for it, and for years there was silence, until September 22nd, 2023. That morning, both men stopped at the same staffing agency. Security cameras caught them leaving separately. Johnson boarding a bus, Butler climbing into a red Ford Escape. What happened next was no coincidence. For 90 minutes, prosecutors say Butler stalked Johnson's movements, following the bus through the city, parking just ahead of where Johnson would walk. As Johnson scrolled through his phone, the Ford's door opened. a man stepped out and opened fire. 8 shots. 2 found their mark. Johnson collapsed on East 17th Street and never got up again. 18 hours later, police found Butler hiding in a Medville hotel room booked under another name. In the basement of his home, a 9mm handgun, wrapped in plastic, hidden under a laundry machine. Ballistics matched it to the murder. Prosecutors called it revenge. The jury called it first-degree murder. On August 8, 2025, Devonta Butler was sentenced to life without parole. An old shooting settled with another. Clinton Township, Michigan. A quiet January morning at Reliable Fence. The hum of work, shattered by gunfire. Employees scatter. One man walks with purpose. Jerry Motley, 25 years old, had brought a gun to work that day. First, he turned it on his coworker, Angelo McHale, shooting him twice. McHale would survive, but Motley wasn't finished. He walked into the office of his boss, Thomas Badke, face to face, no warning, no argument, just a close-range execution. Badke died instantly. Motley fled, but police caught him within hours. He confessed. In 2019, a jury convicted him of first-degree murder. Life in prison, case closed, or so it seemed. That conviction was later overturned. His trial attorney ruled ineffective. A second trial was ordered. This time, Motley tried a new defense, legal insanity. But after a 2.5-week trial, the jury wasn't buying it. Evidence was too strong, the planning too deliberate. On June 20th, 2025, the verdict came in. Guilty, first-degree premeditated murder. Going armed with a dangerous weapon, 2 counts of felony firearm. On August 7th, 2025, Jerry Motley was sentenced. Life without parole. For walking into work and killing the man who signed his paychecks. If I could editorialize here for a moment, he may have actually been insane if he thought he could get away with this. Pensacola, Florida. An 18-year-old mother is working her shift at Home Depot. She doesn't know it's the last thing she'll ever do. She's not just an employee, she's a target. Because sitting in the parking lot is the father of her 2-year-old child, and he's not alone. His mother, Sheila Agee, drove the victim to work that morning, and then stayed to watch her die. That victim was Brooklyn Sims. She thought she was co-parenting. Instead, she was being hunted. What police discovered later were text messages, dozens of them, between Sheila and her son, Keith Agee, as they plotted Brooklyn's execution. "Don't come kill her," Sheila texted, "You a MF'n B-word." Keith asked, "Should I drag her out of the car or just shoot her?" Sheila replied, "As long as you don't shoot me." Then, Sheila sent a map of the Home Depot. She told him where to find Brooklyn, where to wait, and where to shoot. Moments later, shots rang out inside the store. Brooklyn collapsed in front of customers, in front of coworkers, gone at just 18. Keith Agee was arrested. He confessed. He claimed Brooklyn gave him an STD, but medical records prove she didn't. He was convicted of first-degree murder in 2023, life without parole. And Sheila? She went to a balloon release honoring Brooklyn, pretending to grieve. She was arrested that same night. In July 2025, after a second trial, Sheila Agee was convicted of principal to first-degree murder. Mandatory sentence, life without possibility of parole. A mother who drove her grandchild's mother to work and helped orchestrate her murder. If I could editorialize here for a moment, I didn't like this one. Columbus, Ohio. A SWAT team breaks down the door of a quiet condo. They're not here for murder, they're looking for drugs, cocaine, fentanyl, meth. But what they find is something else entirely. In the garage, heavy-duty cleaning supplies, plastic sheeting on the walls, and black trash bags. Inside the bags, human remains. The victim, 32-year-old Allison Lorenz. She'd been beaten for days, with fists, with boxing gloves. Her ribs shattered, her body covered in blunt force trauma. And then she was dismembered after death. Investigators say it was Eric Ward, a man already convicted in 2018 for beating her, a man who'd forced his way back into her life and her home. This time they say he didn't stop. He used his fists, he used his power, then he used an axe. Surveillance video showed him and another woman buying the tools: axe, shears, a white Tyvek suit. The suit had Allison's DNA on the outside and Ward's on the inside. The woman testified against him, said he made her help, that he beat both of them. And when Allison stopped breathing, he put a wet cloth over her mouth, then left her to die. Eric Ward says it's all lies, that he didn't do it, that the evidence was planted. But the jury saw enough, convicted him on 18 charges, including aggravated murder, kidnapping, abuse of a corpse, drug trafficking, weapons violations. On August 6, 2025, Eric Ward was sentenced to life in prison without parole, plus nearly 80 more years. The judge called it a scene straight out of a horror movie, and for Allison's family, the nightmare never ends. If I could editorialize here for a moment, I don't think this was necessary.